And we are live. Good morning, Facebook family. Hey, listen, first of all, I want to welcome everyone to the VIP Morning Show with Steve and Pasha Carter.
Good morning.
And we're excited to have you here. And we are most excited because the gentleman that we have on, first of all, if you're there, comment, let us know you're there. We're getting some feedback.
Are we?
Mm-hmm.
Is that here?
I'm not sure.
Oh, yeah. Probably.
You got to mute that.
I'm muted.
So anyway, we are so excited because we have a special guest with us this morning. For those of you that are here, please let us know that you're here. Say hi, good morning, hello, 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 good morning, good morning, good morning, Susie, good morning, Lewis. Welcome,
I do this
everybody that's here. Good. I love it. I love it. Donald's definitely on. Welcome, everyone.
Man, we got a lot of people up early this morning.
Yes. Everybody's rising and shining. I love it. I love it. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to put here so we can see your comments. So go ahead and start posting and let me see if it will appear up here. Can someone, if you're listening, can you drop a 1 just so that I can see your comments on the screen very quickly?
Like here, babe?
Yes. See, this is comments from Facebook Live, but it's not popping up. See what I mean? Unless I hit show. See, watch now I hit show and it'll pop up. Watch that. That's weird. Interesting. Trying to figure out why your comments are not popping up on my screen.
There you got 1.
Okay, there's a 1. Perfect.
Yep, Marisol just put 1.
All right, good. Good morning. There we go. It's working. Yes. We are cooking. Okay, listen, everyone.
I need my pen.
I am always excited to interview different people, but this morning, first of all, I want you to share this with your timeline. I want you to tag as many people that you know. Every entrepreneur and every person, even those people who just have that slight level of consciousness that you know need to hear this, you want to tag them, because we are so honored today because we have the co-author of the top-selling book, Conscious Capitalism. And for those of you who don't know what that book is, he co-authored this book with a gentleman by the name of John Mackey, who's the co-founder of Whole Foods Market. Now, I think all of us know exactly what Whole Foods Market is. We go every day.
If you don't, you need to.
Absolutely. And the gentleman, Raj Sisodia, that you're going to be hearing from, I mean, he is just a master at talking about the new way of doing business and what is really going to take over the future in order to take your business to another level. So I want to tell you a little bit about him because, as you know, he's the co-author of Conscious Capitalism with John Mackey, who's the co-founder and CEO of Whole Foods. In addition to that, he wrote a book as he's one of the 50 leading marketing thinkers in the world. So how about that? And we have him on today.
Wow.
He's written hundreds of articles for the Harvard Business Review, and he is just an all-around amazing person. So I'm going to stop talking because I don't want to hold him from you much longer. We don't have a lot of time. I want to pack all of this in. But what I want to do is welcome all of you to the VIP Morning Show. But most importantly, I want to welcome our personal guest, Raj Sisodia. Welcome to the live this morning, Raj. How you feeling?
Welcome to the show, Raj.
Thank you, Steve and Pasha. Happy to be with you. I'm hearing myself in my headset. Is that
you know what? Are you?
We turn this one down, honey?
Yeah,
maybe?
I'll turn this down.
Probably.
But also, Raj, if you are
now,
on
Raj.
another device, like if you have your cell phone on, put it all the way down on mute so you can only see it but not be able to hear it. Because sometimes that
And then I turn the volume down on this end as well, Raj.
Okay. Yeah, now I don't hear myself, so that's always good.
Fantastic. So listen, everyone, the first thing that I want to do is, again, we're welcoming Raj to the call, to the live, that is. And I want to start out by asking you a question because a lot of times we talk about conscious capitalism. And honestly, it sounds really good, but a lot of people have no idea what that means. So can you share with everyone what exactly is conscious capitalism?
Yeah, so it's a different way to think about business. We think it's an evolved way to think about business. You know, we've had the institution of capitalism for about 240 or so years. We dated back to 1776. Adam Smith, The Wealth of Nations, kind of laid the foundational groundwork. around how markets operate, the idea of the invisible hand of the market, the idea that prosperity is rooted in freedom, that individuals making choices that they deem to be in their own best interest will eventually enable us to meet each other's needs and elevate prosperity. So that idea was extremely powerful, and it led for the last 200 years to some dramatic advances. Not only materially, per capita incomes have risen 1,500% in that time in real terms, but life expectancy has gone up dramatically from about 28 to about 73. Literacy has gone from 13% to 87%, etc. So many significant progressions have happened for humanity. But at the same time, we've also paid a price for that, in the sense that the relentless pursuit of profit alone, so this idea of people pursuing their self-interest became somewhat narrowly construed as simply maximizing your own profits. And that is a myopic way of thinking about life and about business. Because if you focus on that, you're inevitably going to end up doing things that harm others, your suppliers, your employees, even your customers on occasion. Right. Because you will say and do what it takes to maximize your own profits. So you end up actually over time harming the ability of your business to actually start thrive, because over time people realize that's what you're doing. What we are saying is that just like we in our lives, I believe the two of you and I and a lot of people we know have a sense of purpose in their life, right? There's something that you want to do with this life. And of course, you're going to make money because you need money to survive and thrive. But that's not the goal. That's not the reason why you're doing what you're doing. Likewise, every business should have a higher purpose separate from profit. We have to have profits to survive and to grow, but there should be a defined and well-articulated purpose. You mentioned Whole Foods. Their purpose is very clear: to
Right.
improve people's health and their longevity, and to impact the food system and the planet, right? Because the way we produce our food matters. The second is this idea that every stakeholder is important. So it's not just investors, idea of shareholder value maximization. We have to serve our customers, we have to serve our employees and create value for them. Suppliers, communities, the environment, right? So we have to integrate all of these stakeholders together. And what's good for one should be good for all.
Right? That's fantastic. Let me ask you this, Raj. Do you think that there's a negative attitude towards capitalism? And why do you think people sometimes have a negative attitude towards capitalism?
There is a negative attitude. In the US, only 21% of Americans trust big business. So that tells you something. I mean, this is the home of global capitalism, and this is kind of where all this stuff came to fruition, and yet the vast majority of people don't trust it. 88% of Americans feel they work for a company that doesn't care about them as human beings.
Right.
Most CEOs will get up at their annual meeting and only talk about their share price, and they'll talk about their financial goals and that they want to maximize shareholder value. That language and that way of being is not inspiring to anybody.
Right.
It makes people feel like objects and like they're being used in order to achieve some other goals. So that certainly is the case. And especially I think it's worrisome that the younger generation, millennials, as we call them, a majority of them actually think that socialism is a better system that they would want to see rather than capitalism. And that is a very, very dangerous trend, because if there's one thing we know is that socialism doesn't work.
Right.
That's been proven in history, and it devolves into communism and devolves into dictatorships and a loss of freedom, where the government controls every aspect of your life. Human beings are meant to live in freedom and self-determination. So it's a very dangerous trend, but it's because of the way in which we have talked about capitalism and in the way in which we have enacted it that has caused a tremendous backlash. So we need to change the way we think about it, and we need to use this extremely powerful idea rooted in freedom and human dignity, but use it with a higher consciousness. See, any tool can be used with different levels of consciousness. Somebody can use a scalpel to kill somebody else, and a surgeon can use it to save somebody's life, right?
Right.
Capitalism, this system is a powerful tool, but the consciousness with which you use that tool makes a tremendous difference to the lives of all the people you touch.
Wow, that's powerful.
Right, and to enact that, you need leaders actually who care about more than, they're not just about power and ego and money. They actually care about people, and they have a deep sense of purpose. And we create cultures where people actually look forward to going to work, because most companies, that's not the case. There's a tremendous amount of fear and stress, and heart attacks are much higher on Monday morning, and people are negatively impacted. So these companies have cultures that are built on trust and fun and actually caring. They're built on love and care. I think that's the biggest differentiator.
Yeah.
Yeah. I know in your book, you talk about the 4 tenets of conscious capitalism. There are 4 different things that you talk about that every company needs to have in order to thrive. Can you share those 4 with us?
Well, yeah, I just outlined them, right? So it's higher purpose, right? Instead of just profit. It's stakeholders, not just shareholders. It's conscious leadership, not command and control, leaders who are using other people to achieve their goals, but actually empowering people, giving them a vision, taking them to a better place. And it's a caring culture, right? So they answer the questions of why do we exist, what do we do, who are we, and how do we operate? And we have different answers to those questions under this paradigm than the traditional way of thinking about business, which is, by the way, still being taught in business schools.
Right.
For the most part, we're still teaching the old way. I've been a business professor for 33 years, and I think business schools are part of the problem because we are propagating a dangerous and outdated view of business for the most part.
I know this would be a broad question, Raj, but we have a lot of the listeners and viewers on our show. They are either just beginning their entrepreneur journey, their entrepreneurship journey, or they are small business owners, or someone that just aspires to become an entrepreneur. What's some of the advice that you would lend and how you became an entrepreneur? What do you think some of these people that really don't have a lot of direction, they don't know where to start, what advice would you give an aspiring entrepreneur?
Well, it's the classic line from Simon Sinek, right? Start with why. Excuse me. Ask yourself why you want to start this business. And if your reason is purely and only rooted in money, then it doesn't have the kind of power and the energy that it should. So start with why, have a compelling reason and a purpose. And typically that aligns with something that's worth doing and needs doing, right? So it's about doing something worth doing and making money. It's not about doing something to make money.
Right.
That's a big, big difference. Because when you have that, you're going to attract people who are passionate about that same thing, right? You're going to generate tremendous amounts of innovation and creativity and commitment and perseverance. Starting a business is not easy and there are tremendous obstacles. But if you have, as the classic expression, I think from Viktor Frankl goes, he who has a why can withstand almost any what. If you have a why, you can go through all those obstacles and surmount them.
I love that.
Yeah.
Right. So starting with why is critical. Okay. And again, our world has many, many challenges, many problems. And as a business, we should not be part of the problem. We need to be part of the solution.
Amen.
So many businesses add to the burdens of society, right? They add to pollution. They add to cultural negative consequences. They add stress to people's lives in terms of people who work there. They may even make their customers unhealthy because they're getting them hooked on and addicted on to things that are not actually good for them. So again, we need to be part of the solution, which means start with why, and then consciously think about not just your customers, but think about your employees, your suppliers, and your communities, and even the investors. Make sure that you take money from people who actually believe in what you're doing, right? Who are aligned on purpose and not just looking at the return. So every stakeholder should actually be motivated by the purpose. And that actually creates alignment between stakeholders. Because now you have a shared purpose. If you don't have a shared purpose, you are literally at cross purposes. Everybody has a different agenda from the business, right? Employees want to get paid as much and work as little. Customers want the lowest price. Suppliers want the highest margin. Society wants to tax you as much as possible. Investors want every last penny of return. Those are cross purposes because now everybody's taking from that system, from that business. When you have a shared purpose and shared values, everybody is a giver to that system. They are part of making that thing whole. So in order to win, which is what we want for all those stakeholders, you have to give. And the more you give, the more you actually receive. Ultimately.
Which goes right back to the very beginning of what you said, and I think it's probably a safe assumption to know that a lot of aspiring entrepreneurs or young entrepreneurs, a lot of individuals probably start in a manner, mindset wise, exactly the opposite of what you stated, which is they probably start, okay, I want to make a bunch of money. Because that's what I think the subconscious thought is, well, I want to start a business so that I can generate an unlimited amount. But I love your answer, because if someone is just going after a business for money, that's going to be a short-lived goal. It's going to be
and you're going to I call that more of a parasite than a business, right? Because you're going to extract value. You're going to squeeze your employees. You're going to, what we euphemistically refer to as externalize burdens onto society. In other words, you're going to put pollution and other things out there, right? And so you come from a place of service. Organizations exist to serve. I mean, these are vehicles of service. In a free market system, basically, we've given business the opportunity and therefore the responsibility of meeting our human needs, right? Government doesn't do that. Businesses get to do that. But in order to do that well, you have to come from a place of service, not from a place of exploitation or use, right? So if we are about creating value for and serving all of our stakeholders, including our employees, their children, their families, their communities, our customers, everybody, that creates a whole different energy. And then when you do that, everybody is actually on your side. Right. Otherwise it becomes very adversarial. Right? Yeah. You view your suppliers as almost, you beat them down and get the lowest price. You view your customers as adversarial and make sure you get the highest price from them. Employees, pay them as little as possible, make them work as hard as possible. See, that's no way to live, and it's no way to run a business. And ultimately, that's a downward spiral.
Yep.
And the conscious companies don't do that. They try to pay their. I mean, I was just interviewing the head of HEB, which is a great supermarket chain in Texas, right, based in San Antonio. And they were there in the hurricane in Harvey in Houston. They had their disaster relief operations out there. Even before FEMA and the Red Cross, they show up. And they were started by the grandmother of the current chairman. And he says to their leaders, please pay our people as much as possible.
Wow.
Okay. So they look to pay their employees as much as they can afford to pay. And by the way, they have the lowest prices and the highest quality for customers.
Yeah.
The most fanatically loyal employees, customers, etc. All of this starts to work together in a virtuous cycle when you have that intentionality and that value system that says this is about service and creating value for everybody.
Which goes back to Raj's original point, which is your why. When you identify that why, then you start your business with a purpose. And if you're building business with a purpose, the money will automatically come, but you're more focused on fulfilling that purpose. And that purpose, if it's for someone else or serving someone else, it's even more powerful. That's powerful.
The purpose needs to be
other. I heard you say something, Raj. I was listening to you, and you said something that really struck me. You said most traditional businesses are a source of hurting. Can you elaborate on that, and what exactly did you mean by that?
Well, if you look at the sad and startling statistic that heart attacks are 20% higher on Monday morning.
Okay? Yep.
Now, what does that tell you right away? Okay, our work is tremendously connected with stress. A friend of mine at Stanford just published a book called Dying for a Paycheck, and he's quantified, the consequences of the toxic work environments that we have, where people are under tremendous pressure and stress, where there's a lack of dignity and respect, where they don't feel valued as human beings. They're just seen as a function or an object, where they are interchangeable parts. They could be let go at any moment, just to make the numbers look right. And they've estimated that about 120,000 Americans are killed every year just by their work. Okay.
Wow. And I read in the Business Insider this a couple of years ago. I read in Business Insider that 80% of employees are dissatisfied with their work.
Yeah, so that's Gallup's employee engagement data. Worldwide, 85% of employees are disengaged. Only 15% of employees are engaged in their work, which means, it's not just their body, but their mind is, and they're kind of connected to their work. They care about their work. But that means 85% are not, right? And out of that, about 20% actually hate their work, and they hate their workplace. And a lot of them are indifferent. They're just there, but there's nothing inspiring or motivating. So our work has become something to be survived, right? Something it's like a place that you need to navigate all the, all of the stresses and tensions and political undercurrents. Our approach to leadership has become toxic. Think about it. Nobody wants to be managed. Nobody wants to be bossed. Nobody wants to be supervised. People want leadership. But they don't want, management almost implies manipulation. So we have too much of that. A lot of this work stress comes from a toxic relationship with whoever you report to. because they're viewing you as somebody to exploit and to get as much out of as possible. So the fact is that the vast majority of businesses are adding to our burdens. They're shortening our lives. They're impacting our children. They're impacting future generations. There's a multi-generational impact, right? When you impact a parent and then they go home in a certain state of mind, and what that does to the, so it ripples out. Negative and positive emotions are intensely contagious. And at work, we create all these negative currents, in the vast majority of cases. So it is actually causing a tremendous amount of stress. The way we work isn't working. There's certainly a huge amount of financial stress. People are poorly paid. In 35 years, worker pay hasn't gone up at all. CEO pay has gone up 937% in that time. So companies are, they're literally keeping the benefits for a limited few. And they're not, this is a system that is meant to create widespread prosperity, and it can and does.
And yet everybody does it. I mean, well, when I say
almost, conscious companies don't do that. So conscious companies pay their people at the front lines better. Like I mentioned, HEB and most of these companies, like Costco pays double of Walmart. Container Store pays double. They provide great benefits. Starbucks provides healthcare even to part-time. But their people at the top are more modestly paid. So they don't go nuts at the CEO level. They pay them. Whole Foods is 19 times the median pay. Right, and a typical public company is about 380 times. So the CEO.
What's powerful about what you just stated? A few of those companies that you stated, Container Store. You stated Whole Foods,
Costco,
you stated Starbucks, and think about this, Costco. When you walk into any of those stores, there's a different environment.
There is. You're feeling the culture, the vibe.
Right? Yeah, the culture. Right. You walk into a culture. I know when I walk into the Container Store, they are so friendly. Stores. I mean, they want to help. They're smiling when they're helping. It's like you almost feel like they love their job.
They do.
And same thing with Starbucks.
And they love it because the company loves them. I mean, Container Store, so we're all about our employees. We love our employees. Southwest Airlines. I mean, Dallas has a lot of these great companies, right?
Yep. Love Southwest.
So that's almost a poster child.
Companies we frequent.
Right.
Yeah. So, their stock market symbol is love, LUV, right? They are a company built on love. They love their customers, love their employees, love their cities. Yeah, and the airport as well. And they're the most successful airline in the history of the world. They're 50 years old. Okay.
Wow.
They've grown every year and been profitable every year. They've never laid off one single person in their history. Okay. Even though the airline industry has laid off countless millions. Even after 9/11, they didn't lay off anybody. And they just had their first casualty in 50 years. Think about that. To run an airline for 50 years and now be the biggest airline in the US and not have a single person die until 3 weeks ago, through that freak accident, right?
Right.
I mean, incredible attention to safety, to everybody's well-being. But, people love flying, even though there's no business class. I mean, my friend, the Container Store CEO says, I have lifetime platinum American and, always get upgraded to first class. But if I have a choice, I'd rather go with Southwest Airlines. Even though there's an American, he said, those people hate their company and they take it out on me.
Right.
Yeah. The culture.
Southwest, they love their job. And, I have a great experience there, So it makes all the difference in the world, It's all about human beings. And actually, the CEO of Southwest Airlines, a long time, the legendary CEO who built that company is Herb Kelleher, one of my all-time heroes.
He's got a great documentary and a great book.
Yeah. And he says, the old story was the business of America is business. Calvin Coolidge said that, right? Well, this country was founded on entrepreneurialism. So that's actually pretty accurate. But it begs the question, what is the business of business? And Alfred Sloan, the person who built General Motors and kind of established the modern business paradigms, said the business of business is business, right? It's basically make money, right? And that was kind of the narrow view. Milton Friedman, all the economists, all of Wall Street now, everybody has that view. Yeah. But as Herb Kelleher says, the business of business is people. Yesterday, today, and forever. Okay? There is no higher value than human flourishing. And everything is a means to that end, including profits. Now, what we've done in business is we've flipped that. We've made human beings a means to the end of making money. Right? Mm-hmm. Human beings are, used in order to make. He said, no, profits serve people. It's not people serving profits. So when you have that right, the hierarchy of values, then you're going to do things through the right lens and by putting people at the center. Human dignity and human flourishing, even the Pope talks about, right? Human dignity needs to always be front and center. And too many of our businesses don't do that, and hence the epidemic of suffering, the epidemic not only of heart attacks, but all kinds of stress-related conditions, that come from stress. You get a long list of physical ailments that come from that. The tremendous financial strain that people are under. In the richest country in the history of the world, at a time of booming stock market highs and almost record low unemployment, the reality is that 50% of Americans have less than $400 in the bank. Okay, and if they needed $2,000 within 30 days, would not be able to come up with it. People are living that close to the edge of ruin. One little incident can basically destroy, what you worked for years to create. So we are, and when you have that kind of financial cloud over you or stress that you live under, that impacts you in so many invisible ways, right? From depression to sleeplessness, to migraines, to blood pressure, to all kinds of things result from stress. And most of our healthcare crisis is a result of chronic disease, and most chronic disease is a result of stress, and most stress is a result of work. So the cure for our healthcare crisis starts at work. Wow. If we create a healing, loving environment where people are actually cared for and given, a responsible freedom and treated with respect and dignity, those people will do extraordinary things. So this is not about saying let's make a little less money and make people happier. This is about saying when you focus on the people will take care of the business. The business will thrive at a much higher level when people are
just having happy. That paradigm shift.
Don't use people, serve them. And when you do,
I love that. Don't use people, serve them.
Somebody needs to drop that.
Somebody put that in the comments, because don't use people, serve them. That is powerful, because I'll tell you, there are a lot of listeners right here that may be at their desk at work right now, and they're just listening to this, dreaming of being an entrepreneur. And then there are a lot of entrepreneurs right now that are listening to you saying, hey, I've got this great product, or I'm doing this, but I'm really in it to make money, and I don't really feel like I'm serving. What do you say to the person who may be at work sitting, listening, and they're not fulfilled, and they're just trying to figure out, what do I do with my life? Or the entrepreneur that may just be doing what they're doing for a paycheck. What do you say to them?
So for the entrepreneur, I would say go look at the impact of what you're doing on the lives of others. Okay. There's that silly Undercover Boss on TV.
Yep.
Which is silly to me, because it's like, how clueless are these people? They don't even know their own business, right? They're so shocked when they go down there and find out what actually is happening. So that's like, how do you become a CEO without actually knowing the business? And then they end up applying bandages, like they'll fix that person's problems, but they don't change the system. Right. But I think for an entrepreneur to understand, how are we touching the lives of people? What's happening in the lives of our employees? What's happening in our customers? What's the impact of our what we're offering? And then figure out how to make sure all of those are positive impacts, right? And to ask yourself deep down, is this something on my deathbed? Will I be proud of? What will I be proud of? And I wrote a book called Everybody Matters with a great leader named Bob Chapman, and he says, I will be proud of the lives we touched, not the machines we built or the money we made. It's all about the lives that I touch in a positive way. So we measure success by the way we touch the lives of people. So awakening that, and to me, a lot of that also, it's kind of a cliche to say it, but it's really invoking that mother energy, the caring energy.
Yep.
See, the problem, capitalism has a surplus of father energy and not enough mother energy. Okay. Which means it's all about achievement and self-interest and success and, all of that, right? Money and power, but not about the caring, compassion, and nurturing and empathy and so forth. So the idea of integrating masculine and feminine, it doesn't matter if you're a man or a woman. All of us have those two sides, right?
Right.
And you need to integrate both, because business has been lacking the caring side. It's built on one pillar of self-interest. Right, but human beings have a more powerful drive to care, even more powerful than their self-interest. I call that the mother energy. Capitalism grew up, with only father energy. Actually, we had the mother energy. Adam Smith wrote another book about the need to care. It was called The Theory of Moral Sentiments, but we ignored that. Unfortunately, in life, we often ignore our mothers and we kind of emulate our fathers. In a patriarchal society, that's what you do, right? We devalue the human elements, the caring, the compassion, the sacrifice. I don't know if you saw that sermon by Bishop Curry at the royal wedding a couple of days ago. You didn't say that? Somebody forward. It's a beautiful sermon.
I've been hearing about it.
Oh, you have to watch that. It's about the redemptive power of love, and not just in personal, in business, in government, in society at large. It's a beautiful thing. So we left that out. See, capitalism therefore grew up as the system became increasingly one of using people and exploiting people. Hence, it gave rise to unions, militant unions, socialism, communism. All of those came as a response to the abuses of capitalism. Those things did not exist until we had capitalism, right? So again, we need to bring that in. So for entrepreneurs, they need to awaken their heart, and not just the mind. Connect the mind, with the heart and soul, and do business from that place of wholeness. So you need to become whole as a leader, not be fragmented and not be shutting down a part of yourself. As Martin Luther King said, we must be tough-minded and tender-hearted at the same time. Right? It's not just one or the other. So and so that's for entrepreneurs and leaders who are in a position of effecting change. They can actually change the culture, right? They can actually impact the trajectory of that business going forward. In fact, it's their duty and obligation to do so. They should think about growing their business not as growing an empire. Historically, empires have grown through war and through terrible suffering. Right. How did people build empires? Right? By conquest, right? By domination. But they should think of their business like spreading a healing ministry. Once you have created a business that actually has a positive impact on everybody's lives, it's a great place to work. People look forward, they thrive. Customers are better off. Employees are better off. Suppliers, communities, everything thrives because of that business and the way you've created it. Then when you grow it, it's like spreading a ministry. It's like bringing healing to more and more places. Then you have not only a good reason to grow, you have an obligation to grow. Because you can improve more lives. The more you grow, the better the world gets. For many other businesses, I can't say that. The more they grow, the worse the world gets. They're like a kind of cancer. They're spreading, a sort of a debased way of living. They're squeezing people's lives. They're reducing pay. They're cutting out benefits. They're doing things that are not necessarily good for customers, all to squeeze out a little more money for investors today.
Right.
Many companies that do that, right? They will sacrifice anything in order to get more money.
Yeah.
On the other side,
Raj and Pasha and I, we run several different businesses, and what I have found, my personal experience, is that it feels better to give. It feels better when you're doing it for other people.
Yes.
And then it creates that culture and that environment that you enjoy being in. Because Pasha and I, for many years, we've been entrepreneurs for 23 years. We love what we do. We love serving people. Even the purpose of this show. Everything that you are stating is so affirming to me. It's affirming that what we're doing is right, because we really want to serve. And even if there's one listener that hears what you're saying and says, you know what, I have to change my approach, then we know we've spread some good out here.
Absolutely. So I love it. I can see that in your eyes, and then and I have the exact same. I do 80 to 100 talks a year all over the world, and we're building this movement. I was just in Saginaw, Michigan, of all places, 2 days ago for our 36th chapter in the U.S. I'll be in Kansas City week after next, which is our 37th chapter in the U.S. And I'll be in Denmark and Portugal later this year. We have 15 chapters outside the U.S. already and growing. So there's a need for this. There's a hunger for this. We have a sense of urgency about it. As again, Martin Luther King said, there's a fierce urgency of now. We don't have time to waste. It's later than we realize. People are suffering. People are waiting. People are waiting for this message to reach their company and their leaders, so their lives and their children's lives can be better. So I think we have a great obligation and duty to try to spread this more humane way of doing business. Go back to your question, so if you are not the entrepreneur, but you're an employee, you're in a company, right? And you have this terrible culture you're dealing with. My advice to my students who ask that question is, either you change the company or you change the company. Okay.
I like that.
I got it as soon as he said it. Yeah.
From where you are, if you're in a position to affect change, and some people are, sometimes they've got a CEO who actually listens, and you can actually influence up. And I've had experience with a couple of leaders like that. They've brought me in and then they've influenced the CEO, and then that's spread out. But for most people, they're not in a position to impact change. This kind of change doesn't happen from the bottom up or the middle out. It typically requires a leader to have a change of heart and a change of consciousness, And so if that's the case, then I say life's too short. You find a company that aligns with your values. you should look forward to going to work. If you win the lottery on Friday, okay, you should still want to show up at work because it should be about more than the paycheck. The work should have meaning inherent into it beyond the paycheck, right? That's the ultimate test. And if that's not true, then try. I mean, there are great companies out there. I mean, we're identifying them and talking about them, and there are many that we don't know about that are out there. You can look at the good places to work list or the most ethical companies in the world. There are many other lists that even the the employee engagement data. Find places. I mean, Southwest has 95% passionate commitment.
Wow.
Employees, right? Typical company, as I said, 20 to 30% passive engagement. So those companies are out there. Find companies that align, and it's not a matter of good and bad companies. It's also personal alignment.
Right.
So if you're an outdoor enthusiast, and that's what your life and your calling is.
Stuck in the office, right?
Yes.
Yeah. So every free moment you want to be out there, right? Well, go work at Patagonia or REI or LL Bean, right? Or one of those companies. They're trying to reconnect people with nature. That will be an extension of who you are. If you're a foodie and you care about health, well, Whole Foods is a pretty good place. If you are somewhat obsessive, a little bit anal about organization, go work at the Container Store. It's like everything needs to line up just so, right?
Yes,
that will fulfill you.
And you'll remember this too, and because this is going to take you back about 20 years. A mentor of ours that in business used to say something, and just the way he said it, it stuck with me, and I want to repeat it today so the listeners can hear it. And it revolves around what you just stated, and that is, look, human beings, you're not a tree. If you don't like where you are, move.
You're not a tree.
And the way he stated that, I used to, a tree is so rooted, it's there, it's not going anywhere. But human beings aren't trees, so if you don't like what you're doing, move. But you've got to have courage to do that.
I tell you what I want to do is for our listeners, I know many of you have burning questions. So I want you to take a minute and drop your questions below. We're going to take a few questions, but I do have my own personal question as we're closing out. So you guys take the time to write your questions, and we're going to have Raj answer as many of those as possible. But I saw your co-author, John Mackey, on Super Soul Sunday with Oprah. And she asked him some amazing questions. And one of the things that you said that correlates to conscious capitalism and this movement that's going on, and it really just struck me and it touched my heartstring. You said one day our children will have to go to museums to see what poverty looks like. That is powerful. Can you just talk to our listeners about that?
Yes. So that comes from Muhammad Yunus, who is from Bangladesh. He created this idea of micro lending, where most banks only lend people who have credit history and credit worthiness and so forth. The fact is, poor people who need the help don't have that. Right? So he said banks only lend to people who don't really need the money. The people who really could use some help don't get helped. So he started a bank which had the opposite. He gave money to people with absolutely no collateral, right? And small loans and even that small amount of money would help them get out of this trap that they're in of extreme poverty and help them start a tiny little business somewhere. By the way, 95% of them were women. Right. And there's no collateral. So, the only sort of mechanism to ensure that they pay back is just sort of the collective community, positive peer group influence on each other. And they have a 98% repayment rate. And they have, by some estimates, helped 25 million people, lift them from extreme poverty. So, 200 years ago, 90% of people on this planet lived on less than $1 a day. Okay, or today the definition of extreme poverty is $1.90 per day per person. So that was 90% of humanity 200 years ago. Now it's 9%. Okay, and it's declining rapidly through the spread of freedom, through the spread of free markets, free markets and free people. When you have, there's never been a famine in a true democracy. It doesn't happen, right? So the idea that if we can spread freedom around the world, we will spread prosperity. And that's really what this is about. Right, so spreading the ideas of recognizing that capitalism is an extraordinarily powerful force for good in human society, but it needs to be used with the right consciousness. So if we do that, if we spread that, we will probably in the next 15, 20 years get to zero in terms of extreme poverty. Now, I want to qualify that because that doesn't mean everything is great. Right? It just means that you have enough to live, as in stay alive. Right? There's still billions of people living on less than $3 or $4 a day. right? So that's nothing to be, happy or proud about. So there's a tremendous amount that still needs to be done worldwide, but we also should take comfort in the fact that we have made progress. Things are generally moving in the right direction on many of these things. There are some things that are not moving in the right direction, but we are certainly economically have been impacting people, quite a lot. Just in the last 2 decades, China and India, 1 billion people have been lifted out of poverty in just 2 countries through the spread of more of these ideas of free markets and free people.
Wow. Wow. Well, I tell you what we're going to close out, and I'm trying to see if we have a few questions down here. If you guys have your questions, I'm not seeing many of them pop up. I see a bunch of things popping up, not necessarily
a bunch of powerful statements.
Yes, I see a bunch of statements, but I don't see anything in particular, but I do want to close with this. I want you to just talk to the next generation. One of the things my husband and I are passionate about, we're actually in the process of writing a book and doing some other things with young, up and coming entrepreneurs. We have 4 kids ourselves. They all have that entrepreneurial mindset, accompanied with the conscious side as well, because that's what we teach. Mm-hmm. So I want you to, number one, I would love to have you do a few quotes and possibly interview you for that upcoming book. But also, I would love for you to talk to the next generation. Many parents are on this line right now that have kids that have these dreams, and they don't want to go the traditional route of, just working a job. But I know a lot of times parents have that, I want you to stay, on this even keel, this path. What do you say to those young entrepreneurs out there? And just for a minute, just close us out and talk to the next generation.
Yeah, so I think what's very important for the next generation to understand what business is truly about, what capitalism can truly enable, to not get caught up in the old story, because the story that we've told ourselves for a very long time, that it's all about selfishness, greed, and exploitation. Have you ever seen a movie in which the business leader is actually the hero, good guy? It's not, right? They're always the villain, right? And so we've created this thing in our popular culture. So everybody has imbibed that. And some people imbibe that to say greed is good, selfishness is good, right? And that can never be good. Greed and selfishness can never be virtues. Self-interest is fine. Selfishness is not a virtue. And that idea is false. So this wall that non-profits are virtuous and good, and businesses are selfish and greedy, and I'm a good person, therefore I don't want anything to do with business. I think that's a very, very harmful mindset. And, we in business have kind of created that through our actions and our words. But for young people to realize that business can be the most powerful vehicle for service. If you want to do good in the world, don't start a nonprofit. Create a business. And do a business with purpose and values, okay, that serves everybody. And solve the same challenges. My most idealistic students, they come to me with ideas for nonprofits. They want to solve a water issue, food issue, hunger, whatever it is. I said, listen, try to configure that as a business. Because you will not then be reliant on subsidies and donations, right, and the goodwill of others. You will actually make it self-sustaining, and you will be far more scalable if you make it as a viable business. If you're meeting a real need, right, then there's a business model that can come with that to enable you to survive and grow. So again, use your creativity. This is the most purpose-driven generation we've ever had. The young, the millennial generation, and the ones following them. Use that passion to do good in the world, but marry it with the extraordinary power of capitalism and business.
Wow.
Right? And don't add, nonprofits are great and noble, and I admire them, but we don't need more nonprofits. We need more conscious businesses. It's like nonprofits are there to clean up the problems that are being created by traditional businesses, whether it's environmental or, health or human services. All of those things are problems. It's just like they're putting bandages on wounds that we're creating over here. Let's not create the wounds. Let's be healing organizations to begin with. Let's actually take people who have been burned out and stressed out in their lives through other things and make them whole again. That's what business can do. A healing organization can reverse that. And it's not just about, I was just with the CEO of a company a couple of days ago from Costa Rica. They make beer and soft drinks and so forth, which uses a lot of water. And they went on this journey, and they have not only become carbon neutral and water neutral, they are now carbon positive and water positive. In other words, they're not just not doing any more harm, they're actually restoring, back to where it needs to be. That's what business can do. And this is a business that has grown 1,000% in 12 years, in terms of revenues, and is very powerful, very profitable, and having a positive net impact on people. They've reduced the sugar in their soft drinks by 50% gradually in 10 years. Right? They've addressed the issue of over drinking, and alcohol abuse because they sell beer. They've changed consumption habits. They've identified and dealt with people in their own company that are suffering financially and actually living in poverty. They've 3.7% of their people were in those conditions. They've got that down to 0, right? And they're doing all that while running a thriving business. So none of this is a trade-off or a choice between being good and being successful. This says the right way to be successful is by having a positive impact on all the lives you touch.
Love it.
Wow.
We know we've been in business long enough to know when to end it too.
Yes, yes.
That was powerful, Roger. We are so thankful.
Such great information.
The information and the knowledge.
I literally have chill bumps over here because everything that you're saying.
We love aligning with people like you.
It's the way the world should operate.
Raj, you have a new brother and a new sister.
I love it. I love it. You guys, and you're a great couple. I can just see that. It's beautiful. And I hope you live in Dallas, so I'm there all the time. Actually, Container Store board meeting happens there 4 times a year.
We'll do dinner the next time you're here.
Yeah, and we have a great chapter of Conscious Capitalism in Dallas.
Yes.
Let us know. Yeah, we'd love that information.
Share with our listeners how they can reach you, how they can come to some of your events, those that want to stay connected with you.
How they can serve what the
Sure. So if you go to consciouscapitalism.org and you look at the information that's there, and then there's a tab on chapters, and you'll probably find a chapter near you because we have quite a few of them now, right? So become part of it's a great community, and what people say is what kind of you expressed. We found our tribe. We found people who think like us and resonate in this way. We're hearing the same music in a way. It's a very comforting thing. Because in the past, people like that have felt they were alone, they were isolated, that the mainstream of business is over there thinking in a different way. They're kind of the odd ones. But the fact is, this is where most human beings want to be, but they didn't think it was possible. And we're showing that it's possible. And my research in a book called Firms of Endearment showed that these companies outperformed the market by 9-1 over a 10-year period. Okay, so there was a sample of those companies in that book. And so there's a lot of data that says, yes, this actually succeeds better. But it is the long term. We have to have what we call courageous patience. Okay, you don't plant a tree and then tug at it every day to make it grow faster. You have to give it time, right? Put the right seeds in, nurture them, and this will grow into something beautiful. But give it some time.
Powerful.
Well, Raj, listen, we want to thank you
very much
for taking the time out of your schedule to share.
I enjoyed it. I know I was one of the hosts, but I enjoyed this. I mean,
yes, it's nothing better than when you're hosting and you're loving and you're learning at the same time.
Today's going to be a good day.
Absolutely.
I feel good. We started on a.
All right. Yes, absolutely. That's wonderful. Yeah. So let me know how I can share this with my Facebook and other friends and Twitter and whatnot.
That would be the techie.
Yes.
Some links. She'll help you with all that.
She'll
get it all over your wall and all kinds of stuff.
Yes. Right? And for those of you that are listening in, I always want to have a takeaway, and the takeaway today is for those of you right now that aren't aligned with your purpose in business. Take a moment to figure that out. Sit down today and have that stillness within yourself and really think about what you're doing. Every morning when you wake up, every night when you go to bed, how are you feeling? Are you serving? Are you doing business with a purpose? And
are you bringing value to the market?
Absolutely. And if not, then you've got to do some soul searching, because we've got one shot at this thing called life. And I always say, you've got to enjoy the journey.
Because if not, they're not a what?
A what?
You're not a tree.
Oh, right.
Move. Do something different.
Yes.
Do something that fulfills your heart.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Raj. Thank you so much to our listeners. You guys take a minute and share this video. Tag everybody that you know. We're going to change the world with the Conscious Capitalism movement.
Yes.
This is not just a book. This is a movement to be able to change the way that we do business by doing business with a purpose and serving people. So thank you so much, Raj. Good morning, everybody. Have a blessed day. And we're signing off.
Thank you for having me. Thank you.